私、この質疑応答セッションのモデレーターを務めさせていただきます、アジア経済研究所の佐藤寛と申します。私はソリダリダドジャパンの共同代表理事も務めさせていただいております。で、今まだそれほど多くの質問は来ていませんが、まず皆さんからの質問をいただく前に、私からチェンハイさんに一つ質問があります。チェンハイさんは今、クアラルンプールにお住まいで、マレーシアは世界第2のパーム油生産国ですが、クアラルンプールに住む人々は、パーム油の問題をどの程度深刻に受け止めているのでしょうか。環境問題、人権問題として深刻に受け止めているのか、あるいは日本の一般消費者のようにほとんど意識せずに過ごしているのか、まずそのあたりはどうなのかというところから教えていただけますか。
Thank you very much, Satokan. And let me start my video. Thank you very much, Satokan, for the question. Good question, and I'll try to answer that properly for you. I think it's fair to say that the level of awareness on the need for sustainable production in Malaysia is very high. It's very high among the consumers as well as among the farmers themselves, among the growers. And I say this from two perspectives. One is that there's awareness through the negative campaigns, because the negative campaigns by NGOs and the media and so on that is happening in Europe and other places, including Japan, appears in the local media, and so people are aware of it. It is going on within the industry. It's been a big headache for them, so they're addressing the issue to see how they could respond to those negative campaigns, either responding positively to doing better, be more sustainable, or responding to correct any misperceptions, because a lot of these are misperceptions that the forests are being burned down and so on and so forth. The other perspective is a positive perspective of how awareness has been raised. That last year in Malaysia, there was a very big national campaign that goes through the whole country, national campaign to create an awareness for on sustainable palm oil. And the campaign is called Love My Malaysian Palm Oil Campaign. And there the minister herself went through various parts of the country, and officers within the ministries going out to reach out to people, outreach. The main thing was to convey the message that the national standard MSPO has become mandatory, at least from the 1st of January this year, and it's actually to prepare for them. So the awareness, even at the farmers level, the smallholder level is also very high, because they became aware of these attacks that could affect their livelihoods. An example which is on this, the EU has passed what they call the Delegated Act, which actually could restrict the entry of smallholder production into Europe. And this has resulted in even protests, outward protest demonstration by the smallholders themselves. So yes, the awareness is high from two perspectives. Thank you.
はい、ありがとうございます。そういうふうに聞くと、要するにそのパームオイルの産業に携わっている人ばかりでなく、国民の多くの人も、この問題に非常にセンシティブだということだと思うんですが、それに対して日本ではまだほとんどの人がパームオイルの問題に気づいていません。そしてご紹介にあったような EU の反パームオイル運動というのもそこまでは大きく盛り上がってないと思うんですね。でもチェンハイさん、先ほど認証されたパームオイルの生産と販売にギャップがあるとおっしゃっていましたね。ということは、このギャップをまず縮めていかなければいけないと思うんですが、せっかく生産された、持続可能なパームオイルをちゃんと売るためには、一体日本はどんなことをすればいいんでしょうか。
Well, I think it's the immediate thing is for the Japan consumers, or at least the supply chain, to start considering buying certified sustainable palm oil, because there's a lot available produced via CRSPO certification, There's also a lot available produced under the MSPO and in ISPO certificate. So there's plenty of certified oil available. It's a question of the challenge for maybe Solidarity Japan is to raise the awareness among first the supply chain, the producers, the consumer goods manufacturers, and also next is the consumers themselves, that they need to support the purchase of sustainable production. In that way, you can try to look at closing the gap.
はい、ありがとうございました。早速、ソリダリダードジャパンに宿題をいただいたように思いますけれども、質問をいただいているので、それを少しご紹介したいと思いますが、よろしいでしょうか。インドネシアの商農連盟のリニー・ランベさんから、どのようにしてそのインドネシアの商農が ISPO の認証に到達することができるのか。で、なぜその質問をするかというと、このインドネシアの商農も自身が、森林の一部であると。この立場からどうやったらそのインドネシアの商農は ISPO の認証を得ることができるのかというご質問です。
Yes, I think this is a difficult issue for the smallholders themselves, because if the smallholders develop land in forest areas, then there will be a big hurdle for them towards getting ISPO certification. In fact, establishing legality of the land by the smallholders in Indonesia is a big issue. And I think the government is working towards that to try to register the people in various places. And if they can establish that their land is clearly not causing the deforestation, then it's no problem for getting certification. But if the land is right in the middle of it, then it's a different issue altogether. But I think you have to look at the historical perspectives in the sense that I know that in some national parks, smallholders were in those areas before those land became national parks and forest areas. So this is actually a policy issue that the government has to address.
はい、ありがとうございます。先ほど、チェンハイさんは RSPO と ISPO、MSPO の比較をしていただきました。もちろん RSPO が最も、進んだ厳しい基準であることは間違いないと思うのですが、ISPO も MSPO も、改善に向けた努力をされていると思いますが、将来的には ISPO、MSPO の、基準が上がっていけば RSPO と同じになるんでしょうか。
Well, I think that should be the goal, create the impact, because as you said, RSPO is the first standard, started in 2007, and it's undergone a multi-stakeholder review process that have improved standards in 2013, and now last year, in 2018, the latest standards in there. So it's taken into consideration the changing requirements of the market. But ISPO and MSPO standards were based on the 2013 standards of the RSPO. As I said before, the RSPO 2013 was the catalyst to help them to develop this framework. But generally for both countries, those who are involved in charge of certification are fully aware there's a need, fully aware of the shortcomings that have been identified and working towards improvement. So the challenge is working towards this improvement. ISPO has announced the changes, which I showed in the slide. RSPO is now, the MSPO is now undergoing a multi-stakeholder process, which is ongoing. I know it because Solidarity Malaysia is actively involved in this review process. And this process will involve, I think, 2 or 3 public consultations. So the point is, if ISPO and MSPO could incorporate the better features of the latest RSPO standard, that is RSPO 2018, then they should be as good as the RSPO. But the added advantage that if they can reach that level is that they become more impactful on the reach, because being national standards, it will be applied automatically throughout the whole industry. everybody has to comply, otherwise they are behaving illegally. So in that sense, no, there is good promise that if the homework is done, the strengthening is done, MSPO and ISPO should have potentially big impact. Does that answer the question?
ありがとうございます。はい。今、たくさんの質問がどんどん寄せられているんですけども、そのうちの一つは、RSPO と MSPO はなぜ相互認証しないのでしょうかということと、なぜ RSPO と MSPO は、MSPO と ISPO の比較で、なぜ RSPO2018 ではなく RSPO2013 を基準にしたのでしょうか。この2点いかがでしょうか。
So when you're referring to my comparison, I gave two comparisons. RSPO 2013 against MSPO and ISPO, and RSPO, which is the latest one, comparing 2018 against ISPO and MSPO. So when you're comparing 2013 against ISPO and MSPO, it's quite a fair comparison because you're comparing apples with apples. But there's one study now, which is a good study, which is actually comparing the RSPO 2018 versus the MSPO and ISPO 2013, then you're not quite like comparing apple with apples, strictly saying. But that is not an excuse, because maybe after both standards have strengthened themselves, so you have the ISPO 2020 and you have the MSPO 2021, that will be good. It will be good. Let's do a comparison. RSPO 2018 against ISPO 2020 and MSPO 2021. And I hope they'll be all right. But on your question of harmonization, I think that is the way to go. Because if you look at it right now, at least the large companies who are trading globally, like Sime Darby's and Golden Agri and so on, many of their plantation, the same plantation, are certified many times for different requirements. So if they're certified for RSPO, they are again certified for ISPO, they are again certified for ISCC for different supply chains. So can you imagine you have to do the same work on the same area, auditing the same people 3 times, using and unfortunately using the same auditors. A lot of them use the same auditors. So it is a waste of money, it's just a waste of time. So harmonization is a way to go. But unfortunately, because of the differences in the organizational aspirations and objectives, it is not so straightforward. Whereas RSPO itself is seen as a multi-stakeholder organization that is have very strong NGO voice, and also seem to be more Eurocentric. They will find it more difficult to try to harmonize to the national standards. But in reality, I think that's the most sensible way to go, because, for example, RSPO has set targets for uptake of CSPO. For Europe, it's 100% in 2020. They're quite advanced. They're getting there using RSPO certification. I think figure I got yesterday was in 2019, 86% of the consumption in Europe is under CSPO, which is mainly RSPO oil. But they also have set a target for 2020, whereby 50% of the palm oil consumed in Indonesia should imply the RSPO, and also 50% of the oil that we consume in Malaysia is 50%. Now, logically, if you're living in these two countries, would it be more logical that if you buy certified palm oil based on your own certification system? Okay.
はい、ありがとうございます。RSPO はやはりそのヨーロッパの企業を使用する側のニーズに応じていると思うんですが、ご質問の中には、じゃあその量で言えば非常に多いインドや中国からのサステナビリティ要求はあるんですかっていうのが一つ。もう一つは、日本独自のサステナビリティ基準を作ったらどうだというご意見についてはどう思いますかと、この2点いかがでしょうか。
Well, I thought Japan has been quite broad-minded on this. If you look at it, of course, now Tokyo 2020 is gone, and hopefully it will happen next year, but it is gone this year. But in the preparation for Tokyo 2020, the Olympic Committee, Olympic Council, actually, and especially the Olympic Committee in Japan, was very broad-minded in the sense that they have agreed to have sustainable procurement of all the materials and food products that to be used for the Olympics. And they have recognized that palm oil produced sustainably by RSPO, MSPO can be used, and also ISPO. These national standards can be used. So in that sense, Japan is on the right track. Although I know that you have a lot of resistance from some of your people.
で、インドや中国からのサステナビリティ要求はありますかという質問はどうでしょ
う。For that question, I believe the best person to answer is Dr. Shatadru, who is online. Dr. Shatadru.
Thank you.
はい。はい、じゃあ、シャタドルさん、よろしくお願いします。
Thank you, Changhai, for this very enlightening presentation. It's always a learning when we hear such insightful inputs from a person like you who have seen it all in palm oil. As far as the question is concerned on India, we have been working with the Indian stakeholders for a very long time. The fundamental question Indian markets, and not only Indian market, but also Chinese market, they ask is, how many standards do we have to accept? Today, there is a RSPO, there could be an ISPO, there is an ISPO, there is MSPO, there is RA. Shanghai showed at least 5 standards. There could be tomorrow another 5. There's no stopping of that. So no country can actually kind of give a mandate for one particular standard, which it is very difficult to give a mandate for the industry. So that's one part. And the second part was the cost involved, because certain standard like RSPO has got a certain fees. And for a palm oil which is used, and so far the discussion was very engrossing from a producer point of view, but when you look at it from a consumer point of view, palm oil plays a very significant role for people with limited financial means. And it is the oil for the poor people also. So it is not easy to transfer those costs to the people. So therefore, Indian industry, supported by Solidaridad, they took a position that we will create an Indian sustainability framework called IPOS, which has been created. And that an Indian industry says, whichever standard aligns with Indian palm oil sustainability framework, we accept them. And the first steps which has been taken so far is a memorandum of understanding with Malaysian government to recognize IPOS, that is the Indian Palm Oil Sustainability Framework, and MSPO as equivalent. So there is a mutual recognition with Malaysia. There is also a mutual recognition with Indonesian government, which recognizes both the standards as equivalent to each other. There could be similar alignments could be undertaken with other standards, both private and government ones. So that is the position of the Indian industry. They recognize their own standard, whichever standard aligns with IPOS, that is recognized as sustainable.
なるほど。ありがとうございました。そうすると、このインドの認証である IPOS を通じて、MSPO、ISPO 両方が、インドの消費者に認められるものになっていくということですね。
That's right. It is already recognized, not will be, but it is already recognized with the memorandum of understanding signed between Malaysia, India, and India, Indonesia.
はい、ありがとうございます。商農支援についていくつかご質問をいただいているのですが、まずチェンハイさん、その後シャタドルさんにお伺いしたいんですけれども、商農支援というのは具体的にどのようなことをしているのか、そして、 もしその認証にお金がかかるならば、小脳はそういったことについての補助を誰かからいただけるのか、この2点についていかがでしょうか。まず、チェンハイさん、いかがでしょ
う。Yes, as far as the smallholder support is concerned, in fact, it's very necessary because the smallholders themselves do not have the ability. Their support is from two aspects. One is from the access to technology, to knowledge. We have to support them in terms of learning to have the sustainable practices. The other one is looking at how do they achieve certification. I think at this point it's worth mentioning, are we still online? Whoops. Hello, are we online?
We can hear you, Cheng Hai.
Oh, I see, because my screen is flashing all over the place, so I was wondering what's happened, is it? Okay, I shall answer with my flashing screen. But saying it for smallholders, so I mean, answering in general for both Indonesia and Malaysia is that the smallholders do need support from two perspectives. One is the technology support, capacity building, training them, and so forth. The other one is to give them the physical the support for certification. But having said that, I think we have to bear in mind that what is our end goal? Our end goal should not be just certification. Certification should not be the end in itself. It should be the means to the end for sustainable production. The bigger end goal for the smallholders is actually a better livelihood, better food security, and so forth. In fact, this has been the key drive from Solidaridad itself when we put the farmer first. We don't say let's certify farmers. Let's make farmers more productive and make farmers' life a better, higher standard of living and so on. So in terms of the support, I know from Indonesia there is a palm oil fund which supports, for instance, like replanting of oil palm. In Malaysia, the support to smallholders is the channel through the Malaysian Palm Oil Board, which is the custodian for looking after the welfare of the smallholders there. And this is where Solidaridad Malaysia is involved, working with MPOB. One is to capacity building and helping them to put in good practices. And the Malaysian government is actually supporting the smallholders, at least independent smallholders, 100% financial support to prepare them for certification and also to pay for their certification fee. Does that answer your question?
はい、ありがとうございます。で、その小脳にとっての金銭的な負担っていうのはどうなんでしょうか。
Right now, I think what's happening in terms of support for smallholders getting certification, they're actually getting a lot of financial support and also through RSPO. RSPO has what we call the RSS, the Smallholders Support Fund, which actually helps them to gain certification and so on, you see. And various organizations, even the NGO organizations are helping the smallholders. For instance, in Indonesia, several NGOs are helping smallholders to train them and get certified. Setara Jambi, for instance, is very active. And also international organizations such as the International Finance Corporation, IFC, which has actually undertaken a very big smallholder development project in Indonesia, in Sumatra, which started in 2015. And to date, this single project has trained more than 40,000 independent smallholders, which is a very sizable achievement.
はい、ありがとうございます。では、シャタドルさん、同じ質問ですが、小脳に対するサポートというのをどのように考えているのか、そしてソリダリダードはどういう形でサポートをしているのか、お願いできますか。
Thank you. Solidaridad works with the smallholders for improving the competitiveness of the smallholders at 4 levels. The first level is about good practices. where we bring in some of the most advanced knowledge on good practices, from collecting it from across the world, but also from within the region, because countries like Malaysia and Indonesia has some of the best knowledge about how to grow palm oil in a better way, like one Malaysian Palm Oil Board or Indonesian Palm Oil Board. What we also try to do is, one of the big problems is how to reach out to a large number of farmers. So we use our digital technology, which also reduces cost. And in a very short time, you could reach out to many thousands of farmers. So as we talk, we already are implementing our digital training systems for the farmers of palm oil in Malaysia and Indonesia. So that's one part of the picture. The second part of the picture is, we also try to support farmers in creating a enabling business environment, where we try to connect them with the big plantations and also adding value to their work. So that's the second part. Third part is enabling environment, where we try to bring in the farmers, empower them to negotiate and engage with the government schemes and government actors. For example, one of the issues were raised about Indonesian smallholders having trouble with land rights. And this is one area Solidaridad has been working for a very long time in a place like Kalimantan, where the farmers have severe issues around land rights. So Indonesian government is willing to support such issues. However, sometimes information is not adequate. So Solidaridad provides those acts as a connecting bridge and provide those support. And lastly, I think, and that's the often missed out part, is to promote smallholder palm oil being traded in the region. You have heard from Shanghai that, or there was a question also on that, that often certifications like RSPO has promoted big plantation products. That has gone to, they don't need market access. They know how to access market. They have everywhere retail. But the smallholders, they don't have, which is becoming a very big number in both the countries, they don't have access in that adequate way. They suffer from also a stigma that they are not very sustainable, because they, as we also heard, that they are not covered fully by those mainstream certifications. So what we try to do is to promote smallholder palm oil in significant markets like India, China, and hopefully in future in Japan as well. As we start recognizing smallholders produce palm oil, it will do wonders to their livelihood and to their sustainability. And there was one question about the costing and the price, who takes care of the cost. I think we are reaching a stage. Initial stage is always the starting point, where Shanghai showed us a very nice S-curve, where you have the first movers and then getting a critical mass. I think the NGOs have a role to play to provide grants, but eventually the sector should itself cover these costs, because everyone is interdependent on each other. No palm oil company, no FMCG company could be effective if palm oil producers stop producing palm oil and shift to another crop. So it is the interdependence and interlinkages, and that's something which we would like to promote, where these kind of costs are absorbed within the supply chain as part and parcel of doing business in palm oil.
はい、ありがとうございます。今、この出されているこのプレゼンテーションですけども、その最初の段階から、ファーストムーバーに行くところっていうのは、かなり環境や社会や人権について意識の高い方々がやっていくで、ここにも NGO の役割があると思うのですけれども、おそらくソリダリダードがやろうとしているのは、このクリティカルマスを作るところにも、ソリダリダードの役割があるということなんだと思います。で、今、シャタドルさんのお話があって分かるように、そのソリダリダードのこのパームオイルについての支援というのは、単に認証を取るということだけではなくて、認証も含めて、小農がより良い生活をするために何ができるかということで、いろんな多角的なことをやっているというのが分かったと思います。で、それに関連して、グッドプラクティスに関連してなんですが、東洋大学の寺内さんから、このグッドプラクティスというのは、一体どういうものを指しているのかと。で、どういう意味かというと、小農のグッドアグリカルチャープラクティスはプランテーション技術なんでしょうか。そうではなくて、アグロフォレストリー技術というようなものも、 グッドプラクティスに含まれることはあるのですかというご質問ですが、これはいかがでしょう。
Yes, I think you're referring to what I said about best practices, best management practices. This is a very broad term that I've used, but it actually covers the entire range of agronomic practices, starting from using the right type of seed, the right type of planting material, how to prepare the land, how to put the fertilizers, how to harvest, and so on and so forth. Basically, a lot of smallholders, both in Indonesia and Malaysia, are very lacking in this knowledge of what we call the sustainable good practice, you see. So even without looking about certification, if you can get them to adopt good practices, they will already have made big improvements, okay? So it is a very broad range of activities they have to do then, all right?
はい、ありがとうございます。実は今日の参加者の中で、約100名の方が参加されていて、そのうち十数名が、非日本語話者の方なんですが、質問はそういう方からの方が多いんですが、参加者の中に、中実践さんがいらっしゃいますが、中さんは、MSPO の方でしたでしょうか。チェンハイさん、こちらの方、ご存知ですか？
Yes, Mr. Chiu, I saw that he posted a few questions. Chu Jik-seng is the CEO of the Malaysian Palm Oil Certification Council, which is a scheme owner for MSPO. So unfortunately, my screen is blank now, but he has asked a few questions. Maybe he wants to contribute something? Mr. Chiu?
はい。質問もあるし、コメントもありますので、もし、チュウさんがよろしければ、直接お話をしていただこうと思うのですが、チュウさん、お話ししていただくことはできますでしょうか。
Yeah, can you hear me? Good afternoon from Malaysia. Sato-san and Cheng-hai-san and everyone in Japan, Shataru-san as well. Yeah, I'm actually, giving some pointers to Shanghai-san, Cheng-hai-san to contribute to the question that have been asked. So yeah, I mean, we are all working very hard to strengthen our standards as with the market expectations, and we are also actually at this moment develop, the MSPO Trace IT platform, which you can actually access, globally, which gives us the transparency and the traceability. And we are right now working very hard with the Japanese actually to have a modified, simplified verification system in preparation for the Tokyo Olympics next year actually. So that is actually in the advanced stage. We are looking to do pilot studies. Unfortunately, as everyone knows, the COVID situation has thrown a spanner in the works, and everything has been delayed. But we look forward to further improve. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think to add on to Mr. Chiu's point, I know that they have done, I think 2 years ago, on this question of harmonization, they did a benchmarking and alignment between MSPO and ISCC standards. And they've identified areas for improvement. And I presume this review process will take into account those recommendations for strengthening the MSPO standard.
Yes. Yeah.
はい、ありがとうございます。チュウさん、ありがとうございました。で、直接 MSPO の方からお話す機会もなかなかないので、非常に貴重な機会でした。ありがとうございます。で、その認証が複数あることについては、もちろん、生産者も非常に大変なわけですけれども、消費者の方も、あるいは企業の方もですね、複数の認証があることによって、例えば日本の、お菓子のメーカーが、その複数の認証があることによって非常に大変だと、なんとかこれをハーモナイズしてもらえないのかというニーズがあると思うんですが、この認証間のハーモナイズということについて、どのようにお考えか、まずチェンハイさんにお伺いできますか？
Yeah, I mean, harmonization per se is not straightforward because they have different stakeholders who develop the different standards. But what we have done in MPOCC or MSPO is that we have actually worked on a common checklist, which will help the auditees to be certified. And using the RSPO and the MSPO checklist, common checklist in 2013, we did that. And then unfortunately now it's 2018 new standard, we have to review again when the MSPO 2021 is ready. But as Cheng Hai-san mentioned just now, we also have done benchmarking with ICC and also looked at benchmarking by other organizations. And in our multi-stakeholder groups, we will endeavor to strengthen our standards to meet the market expectations for MSPO 2021. Thank you.
ありがとうございます。今の、中さんの英語は、翻訳が視聴者の方聞こえましたでしょうか。今、中さんおっしゃったのは、MSPO もそのハーモナイズに向けて、共通の基準を作ろうとしていらっしゃるということを、おっしゃったと思います。では、次の質問ですけれども、どれにしましょうか。以前ですね、その RSPO やその他のその認証機関のその認証のプロセスについて、十分に行われてないんではないかという、報道があったりしましたけれども、その認証を付与する機関のその透明性、中立性というのも担保するのが非常に重要だと思うんですが、このあたりについては、チェンハイさん、どういう形でその認証の独立性、透明性というのを改善しようとしているのかをご説明いただけますでしょうか。
Yeah, I think to understand, we have to look at the process in terms of certification. The certification process, you have the standard, which is the principles and criteria. Then you have to get the people who are performing to get the certification audited against those standards. And those people do it are what they call the certification bodies. Those are the independent people to audit the plantations and smallholders. Now, those certification bodies are actually independent in the sense that they have to be accredited. They have to be accredited with the system. So in RSPO, the accreditation is done independently, and similarly, with MSPO, the accreditation is done by the Department of Standards Malaysia, which is independent of the scheme holder, the scheme owner. I'm not so sure what the actual process to the ISPO now, because there's been criticisms on the ISPO, because previously ISPO, the award of the certificate is done by the government themselves, whereas RSPO and MSPO, the award certificate is done by the independent third party. But on the most recent revision in the President's 2020 regulation, it shows that they have recognized that they are now moving the award of the certification to the certification bodies. That means moving that responsibility away from the government body that's running the ISPO to the independent certification body. So that's one way, in fact, the critical way to ensure a better transparency and independence of the system.
はい、ありがとうございます。これは日本の企業の方が今日たくさん参加されているんですね。で、普段日本の企業の方とお話をしているとですね、今はそのビジネスと人権というトピックが世界的に非常に重要になっていて、で、特にサプライチェーンに関しては、サプライチェーンを作る前のデューデリジェンスと、それから作ってから以降の、問題が起こった時の苦情処理メカニズムが非常に注目されています。で、ただこれをその一つ一つの企業が自分だけでやるのはあまりにも大変だと。で、資金の面でも専門的なノウハウの面でも大変なのだけれども、こういったことについてソリダリダードは何か支援策、解決策を提示してくれるのでしょうかという質問はいかがでしょうか。
Are you referring to support for the corporations, the manufacturers, and so on on certification?
Yes,
I
so,
think
yes, right.
my response is that do not underestimate the knowledge of the Japanese companies. The Japanese companies, in my previous experience, were very early in learning about these developments. And companies like Saraya Company has been a member since 2005. And I think Kao, I remember, is one of the very early companies, and Fuji Oil, among the early ones. And they've actually developed the grievance mechanisms and mechanisms of how to comply and fit in these requirements in the supply chain. So I think maybe a good challenge for Solidaridad Japan is try to capture the knowledge that is already among the Japanese companies. No, I was quite impressed because a lot of the Japanese companies, you have actually incorporated what you're doing for sustainability, not to respond to any certification scheme, but to respond to your own philosophy. Your own philosophy. For instance, I think remember reading in there's one which is Kao. Yeah, the Kao. Whereby your whole ESG philosophy is based on my Kire lifestyle, which is totally different from certification.
Kire.
Yeah, Kire, my Kire, which is my beautiful lifestyle.
Right,ありがとうございます。もちろん今言及されたサラヤさんとか藤製油さん、花王さんも今日参加していただいているわけですけども、チェンハイさんおっしゃるように、この、パームオイル全体の仕組みの中では早くから参加していますけど、それでもやはりそのサプライチェーンマネジメント、それ自身全部を考えたときには、非常にその一つの会社だけではやりにくい、だからこそ市民社会との連携も必要だと思うし、から政府との連携も必要だと思うんですが、ここでシャタドルさんに最後の質問なんですが、日本企業が自分のサプライチェーンマネジメントをするときに、さまざまなパートナーを求めていきます。そして政府や市民団体と、パートナーを結べればいいわけですが、日本ではなかなかそういうパートナーシップは結びにくいんですが、シャタドルさんから日本の企業に対して何かアドバイスがあればよろしくお願いします。
Thank you. I think the biggest positive action on human right is to support smallholder farmers to start with. I think because these farmers' livelihood, I mean, palm oil in a very interesting way has been the world's biggest poverty eradication program, not only for the producers, but also for consumers. So I think therefore starting itself is a very interesting point to engage with smallholders. Now, coming to the more technical issue of business and human rights, I mean, there are many tools which are available. There are Denmark has developed a very interesting tool on checking business and human rights issues. You have got UN Global Compact, first two principles, that also looks into that. So there are many tools, and then as Cheng Hai mentioned, almost all major multinational corporations have their own due diligence tools, which are very effective. However, and I agree, and this is a very important point, having worked with many multinational corporations in their supply chain, having just the tools is not enough. You need to have a direct connect with the community, and you need to work with the right stakeholders so that you can reduce your risks. You don't fall into the trap of commercial consultants who just provides you what you want to hear, and you can make meaningful change on the ground for the benefit of the community. I think Solidaridad has been playing that role with multiple businesses to support giving them the correct feedback about how to improve the conditions of the work of the smallholders, workers. We can also give you a kind of, and it is also useful for the smallholder farmers to know about the expectation from the buying companies. They can benefit from the requirements of the market. So this effective communication and working together, because when our team walks around in the midst of dense forest of Kalimantan, they know exactly what is happening there, and that happens day in, day out. however big is the company, they don't have that kind of knowledge. We work with them, we sit with them, we eat with them. So I think that is the benefit of working together between an NGO and a business. That is the whole reason why public-private partnerships has been created. And I think that is the benefit. We can all mutually benefit from each other. We can learn a lot from the tools which is developed by the companies, but the companies can learn a lot from Solidaridad kind of NGOs, what they have to offer from the grassroots level. So it's a win-win combination.
Sato-san, can I ask you a question? Because looking at the time, there's one very interesting question in the list by an anonymous attendee who talk about the palm oil as having a negative image in Europe. I'm not sure you want to take it up for discussion there. It's quite an important point.
はい、それについて、どなたの質問でしたでしょうか。
Anonymous attendee at 3:41 p.m.
Okay. Hi. Okay. So if you have some comment on that.
Sorry, should I answer it? No, I think that was a very interesting observation because right now, the negative campaigns against palm oil industry has been mainly coming from Europe. And there's a lot of NGO campaigns because we are an NGO in Europe also. But no, the perception is that the consumers are reacting to it, therefore they are not going to buy any palm oil. Okay? But my question is that when we use about consumer perception, who are the consumers? Is it the man in the street, the woman in the street, the person who decides to buy the product? Or is it because of the company who's putting the pressure and so on? But I think the surveys have been done that if you ask the man in the street, a woman in the street, would you be willing to pay more for a sustainable product, certified, blah, blah? No. The chances are they are not willing to take out extra. In fact, a very good example, a few years ago, I think when Ferraro, the Nutella, it's called a Nutella stampede. When Nutella, in that particular instance in France, reduced the price as a special offer by 50%, there was a stampede to buy this product. People were fighting over it, and yet the campaigns that says consumers are against the use of Nutella because it contains palm oil, therefore it is bad and it destroys the forest. So I think we have to question who are the consumers. But I think the question is that whether the effort by national governments or even companies here, is it too little, too late? Which should never be too late to me. Opportunities is always there to engage with the companies. And the big engagement is with the supply chain. Because especially in Europe, if you are using the RSPO certification scheme, it's a B2B thing. It's B2B, and it's for the producers to engage with them to support and buy the certified product, whether it's certified to RSPO or MSPO. In fact, yesterday, there was a big webinar on the Sustainable Palm Oil Dialogue in Europe. It was yesterday. And one of the speakers gave a very good slide that shows what is actually perception and what is actually reality by Ferraro. And I think this is one very advanced company. Maybe, Hidemi-san, can you show that picture for me? Hidemi-san or Muruga-san? So you show the image on the slide. Have you got it? I thought it was Muruga-san. Can you show that image on Ferraro SPOD? The one I said. Okay, let me share it on my side then. Okay, let me try to share. Can you see that? Oh no, I'm not sharing yet. It's not working.
Maybe in the interest of the time, you can just share the main highlights.
Yeah, the main highlight is that
It's there. It's there now.
oh yeah, is that the main highlight is this: closing the gap between perception and reality. Okay, and these are the few key points from Ferraro, which produces the famous Nutella product and so on. Number one is education of relevant stakeholders on the positive aspects of sustainable palm oil, different players. Number two, endorsement of sustainable palm oil by authoritative third parties, such as zoos, IUCN, and NGOs. Third is grow and leverage on the awareness and reliability of RSPO. And the fourth point which she gave is fight all biased anti-palm oil communication. And this is coming from a supply chain player, a very big supply chain player. And the key concluding point from this person is that there is no silver bullet. It will take decades to achieve perception. But it is then go back to the spotlight for the right reason. By proving sustainable palm oil as a best practice in sustainability and show the way for other supply chains. I thought it was very poignant, a slide from this person yesterday. Right?
はい、ありがとうございます。実はその東京国際大学の岡田先生からも同じようなご指摘がありまして、日本の消費者はほとんど自分で選ぶことはできなくて、で結局エンドユーザーにはその選択権がなくて、企業がそれを選ぶかどうかにかかっていると。でもその企業が、日本の企業がその持続可能なパームオイルを使うかどうかに影響を与えるのはやっぱり消費者であり、そしてまた市民社会からの動きであり、そしてまた政府の規制であると思うので、さまざまなパートナーが一緒になってこの意識を変えていくということが必要だということだと思いますし、このスライドでもそういったことが言われているのだと思います。すみません、まだまだいただいているご質問はありますが、そろそろお時間が迫ってまいりましたので、とりあえず本日の質疑応答はここまでとさせていただきます。で追加的なご質問、コメント、あるいは今日のウェビナーの評価、ご注文などありましたら、ソリダリダードジャパン事務局長の柳までメールでお問い合わせください。この後ですね、今日はパーム油ですけれども、次回以降もパーム油に限らず、コットンとかサトウキビなどの一次産品、あるいは商農や工場労働者支援のためのインパクトインベストメントなどのテーマを設定し、それぞれの専門家をお招きしてウェビナーシリーズを続けていく予定です。で日本ではまだまだ企業と NGO や NPO との間のパートナーシップの在り方は成熟していません。単に企業が NPO、NGO に支援をして寄付をするというだけの関係ではなく、また逆に単に NGO が企業を糾弾し批判するという関係ではなく、対等なパートナーシップをどのように構築していくのかというのが日本の課題だと思います。ソリダリダードジャパンはこの企業と市民社会の健全なパートナーシップ構築というのをチャレンジしていきたいと考えておりますので、皆様の温かいご支援とご協力をお願いしたいと思います。それではマイクを持続権の吉田さんにお戻しします。皆さんどうもありがとうございました。